So we have the pleasure of hosting today Todd Brady from Intel, the Global Director of Public Affairs and Sustainability. Hi, Todd.
Hi, Momo. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us from the other side of the globe, practically, right?
Absolutely. Well, we're brothers. We're both in the desert. You in Israel, I'm in Arizona. So other side of the world, but a lot of commonalities.
Quite nice, and it's probably quite warm as well, I would say, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Todd, I mean, how did you come about to lead, Intel sustainability efforts? Tell us a bit about yourself, if you may.
Yeah, let me share just a little bit. I come from a large family. I have 8 brothers and sisters. And my father was actually a professor at the local university. And when we were kids, one of the things he wanted to do was instill in us a work ethic. So my first job was actually, I don't remember, I was 8 or 9 years old. And my brothers and I would go around the neighborhood and collect newspapers and cans, and we'd load them in this big, my father actually took a riding lawnmower, like what you see in the movies in the U.S., where we have these big yards, and so you ride around on the lawnmower. And he actually rigged up the lawnmower with a container behind it, a trailer, and we would actually drive it around the neighborhood and pick up newspaper and cans and whatnot. And then once we filled up the entire trailer, then he would go with us to the local recycling yard where we recycle it and we get some money for it. And he was trying to teach us, just the very simply work and the value of work. But in it, it instilled in me kind of an interest from that day forward about, well, what happens to all of this waste? And why is this waste being generated? And what can we do about it? And that's carried with me then throughout my studies at the university in engineering, where I studied chemical engineering, but I was fascinated by air pollution and chemical reactions and what was occurring in the atmosphere, to then, where I am today and leading the sustainability effort at Intel.
Fascinating. And it definitely, I think, makes sense. I mean, in Israel, there's always the sense of going back to the time of austerity. We were much more conscious about waste, and it was much more sustainable in many ways. Let's jump right into Intel sustainability programs. What do you think are the most significant components of that? We've heard a bit about the 2030 goals, but I'm curious to learn about what you think is the most, I would say, significant things there.
Yeah. So we've launched what we call our RISE 2030 goals, as you mentioned. And RISE is actually an acronym for responsible, inclusive, sustainable, and engaging our entire employee base in that exercise. And so when people always ask me, well, what's your favorite initiative or what's the most important initiative? The analogy I use is, and I have 4 of them, it's like choosing your favorite child, right? Who's your favorite child? Which is your favorite initiative? All of these initiatives have the potential to have significant impact. Responsible has an element of safety and building a safety culture, not only within the company, but outside the company through the use of technology, our Mobileye acquisition, and making our cars much safer and saving, ultimately millions of lives through safer transportation. So that's part of the responsible initiative. Then you have the inclusive initiative, which encompasses everything from full representation of our workforce, which and then bridging the digital divide by getting technology to all people around the globe, and even an initiative that my team is leading around volunteering in our communities, 10 million hours. And then finally, the S part of the RISE strategy, sustainability. And there, although we have a wide variety of different initiatives underway, really carbon and water, reducing our carbon footprint and helping others to reduce their footprint, and then addressing the water challenges that we face around the world. And that ties back to carbon emissions and a warming planet. Those 2 rise to the top for me in the sustainability space.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it touches our lives in many aspects. And it's always difficult for outsiders, those who are not part of the ESG sustainability sort of work to grasp that what has been achieved. We're always looking ahead and say, well, we need to do more. So let's sort of celebrate some achievements. What do you sort of celebrate in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the initiatives I think I'm most proud of. If I look at the sustainability space here for a minute in more detail, we have a goal for 2030 to be 100% renewable energy all around the world. We've made great progress. We're over 80% today in terms of our renewable power that we're using to run our factories and our operations around the world. In fact, we're 100% renewable energy there in Israel. And I believe we're still, if not the largest, one of the largest purchasers of renewable energy in the state of Israel. And so that's something I'm very, very proud of, because ultimately the carbon emissions, global warming, the challenges that we face there are probably the single largest challenge that we have, that humanity is facing at this time. And then related to that, again, is water. The two come together. We often call it the energy-water nexus. And we've set a goal to be water positive by 2030. And the idea here is to invest not only in our own operations, which we are doing. We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars in multiple locations around the world in water, these state-of-the-art water treatment plants, where we can take the water from our factory, treat it to levels that then it can be reused either by the local community for agriculture, as we do in Israel, or back to the factory to be recycled, reused in our manufacturing process, or a variety of different other applications. But that's only the first step. As we looked at our water usage, what we realized was ultimately we wanted to be water positive. That is, for every liter coming into Intel, how can we make sure that a liter or more is going back to the local streams, rivers, aquifers, so that our impact is actually a positive impact? And so we began investing outside the walls of Intel into a wide variety of different water restoration projects, often working with the agricultural industry, working with those outside of Intel, with NGOs, with environmental groups, with the forestry industry, in how we can invest to put water back into local rivers and aquifers that ultimately then make it a benefit to the community. So I'm really excited about the progress we've made there and where we're headed with this idea of looking beyond our own walls.
Yeah, it really sounds exciting. I mean, both the renewable energy and the water, not just sort of minimizing your own usage as a company, but also sort of trying to give back. And I've read about several projects in the States regarding that really looked impressive. Sort of, what should we follow? What would you recommend us to, for anyone who's sort of interested, any stakeholders? What's expected in sort of the years to come in again, there's a broader regard to ESG and sustainability?
Yeah. So on the one hand, the water restoration, would love for anyone to check that out. You can go to intel.com/water. You can see a list of all the projects that we're investing in. Most of those, as you said, Momo, are currently in the U.S., but we're starting to broaden outside of the U.S. We just did a terrific project in India. The area we're located in India is in Bangalore, and it's a city of, or was a city when it was founded, of hundreds of lakes. That's why the city was originally founded there. As the population grew and as the water withdrawals grew, the number of lakes shrunk to 20 some odd lakes, an order of magnitude lower than what used to be there. And so we've funded now a couple of projects where we are restoring those urban lakes. And when you have the monsoon seasons and the heavy rains, that those areas can fill up, those lakes can be restored, that water can percolate into the aquifer for future use. It's just a terrific story. So I'd encourage you to go there and see what we're doing. But even more important, we see this as a non-competitive space. We'd love to have other companies join us. We're excited and looking at different opportunities in Israel as well. And so if you have ideas about things that we can do, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to partner. So that's just one example of what I'd say, hey, bring us the ideas, let's work together, and let's solve some of these challenges.
Fantastic. And I really love the sort of call for ideas and for external sort of stakeholders and, communities to come forward and sort of share ideas. That's excellent. And it's also, it gives us a sort of a sense of optimism. We've all read the recent climate change report. It was very alarming, almost drained me of a sort of optimism looking ahead. But it definitely calls for, let's say, a broader work. I'm sure that Intel, as big as it is and very sort of committed as you are, can't do it alone. So what's your sort of message here? And again, what could we expect, do you think?
Absolutely. And I've talked a lot about our operations. We're a big manufacturer. And so obviously we focus a lot on what we call our footprint, our environmental footprint. How can we minimize that? How can we reduce that? But a real opportunity for us to collaborate and think strategically and out of the box and something that I'm a firm believer in, just the creativity and ingenuity of humanity. And how can we solve these problems together? And that moves us from our footprint to what we call our technology handprint. And that's not Intel alone, but that's the high-tech industry in general. If you think about where the high-tech industry has moved us from we're dating ourselves, but we think about how, years ago when I was a kid and what limited technology we had, and then fast forward to today, and it's just pervasive in our lives. But the use of technology, I'm a firm believer, can help us address some of these sustainability challenges. Whether that's making our buildings smarter, our homes smarter, more energy efficient, more water efficient, making our transportation systems smarter, less idling, move to electric vehicles, smart agriculture, the list, smart cities, the list goes on and on and on. In fact, there was a recent study by a group out of Europe, GESI is the acronym, and they released a study called Smarter 2030. And what they projected was that basically for every ton of CO2 that is invested in the high-tech sector, you get a return of up to 10 tons of CO2 reduced for the broader economy, the broader world. And so what are the opportunities out there to come up with new applications to apply technology to solve sustainability challenges? And to put a plug in for Israel, what better place than Israel, which is a startup nation, to come up with ideas on how we can use technology to address these real sustainability challenges that we have. So I think that's an area that we can absolutely all work together, and I'm really excited about.
Absolutely. First of all, it gives us hope. And second, there's a way to solve or deal with the issue that we're in. And thank you for, putting your stake, at least part of that, on Israel. And I definitely agree that, we did a report on Israel's innovation some 30, 50 years ago. And we definitely saw very, I think, inspiring examples of dealing with the crucial issues that we had back then. So hopefully we can all sort of work together on that. Todd, you gave us hope, which I think is really, really essential nowadays. Hopefully we'll be able to do a face-to-face at sort of some time.
Absolutely, I would love that. I always really enjoy my visits to Israel. Just a fascinating part of the world. I love the people. I love the energy, the excitement, just everything, the energy that you feel as you visit the country. So would love to come back in person. Hopefully that can be sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Todd. It has been a pleasure, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Momo. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.